We need to talk about red meat because for years, at least as it relates to cancer, we've been told that eating a steak is as bad as eating bacon. But is this actually true, or have we just been fed a narrative that doesn't quite hold up to scrutiny? Today, I'm breaking down the science behind red meat and cancer risk, and why lumping it together with processed meat may be a little bit misleading. Now, if you've ever looked into the risks of eating meat, you've probably seen that red meat and processed meat are almost always discussed together. But why? Well, first, it's because people who eat a lot of red meat also tend to eat a lot more processed meat as well. So their intakes overlapping these big nutrition studies. Second, both red and processed meat contain heme iron, which can promote the formation of certain compounds linked to cancer. And third, when you cook any meat at high temperatures, you create substances like heterosilicamines, or HCAs, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAHs. And both of these can be carcinogenic in high doses. But here's the key difference. Processed meat contains added nitrites, nitrates, and preservatives, which likely explain why their cancer risk is stronger and more consistent. Back in 2015, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, IARC, made headlines by classifying processed meat as a Group 1 carcinogen, the same category as smoking. Red meat, they got a probably carcinogenic label in Group 2A. Sounds bad, right? But if you actually dig into the details, the wording is incredibly weak. We're talking possibly suggests and maybe associated kind of language. Lumping red meat with processed meat in these studies is like grouping vegetables and processed meat together and then blaming vegetables for health problems. It distorts the reality of what's actually going on. Not long ago, red meat was a staple in most diets around the world, and it was seen as a key source of strength and nourishment. So how did we go from that to fearing it as a cancer-causing food? The answer lies in the rise of epidemiology in the mid-20th century, when researchers started looking at broad dietary patterns in large populations. Some early studies, like the famous 7-country study that was led by Ansel Keys, linked diets high in animal fats, including red meat, with heart disease. Over time, the fear spread to cancer as well. The problem? Many of these studies were based on associations, not direct cause and effect. And as we see, that's a big problem. Now, when people talk about red meat and cancer, they often discuss a few key mechanisms. So let's look at these more closely. First is heme iron. So heme iron is a form of iron that's found in red meat, and it can produce reactive compounds in the gut. Some lab studies suggest that this could increase cancer risk. But here's the catch. Heme iron is also one of the most bioavailable forms of iron, and it's crucial for preventing anemia. Next, nitrates and nitrites in processed meat. So processed meat contains added nitrites and nitrates, which can potentially form carcinogenic compounds. But red meat doesn't have these added chemicals, which is another reason why it makes no sense to lump them together. Now, what about HCAs and PAHs from high heat cooking? So yes, it is true that high heat cooking can potentially produce these harmful compounds. But this isn't just about the meat. The same chemicals can form from any charred food, including vegetables. And slow cooking or sous vide can help to reduce their formation. Now, some people point to blue zones, and these are these regions where people live the longest, and they say that it's their plant-heavy diets that they prove that meat is harmful. But that argument really ignores a lot of nuance. First, blue zones aren't actually meat-free. For example, in Okinawa, people eat pork. In Sardinia, meat is regularly consumed in moderation. Second, these diets emphasize whole, minimally processed foods, strong social connections, and stress-free living. These are all factors that impact health just as much, if not more, than any one single food. And if we're going to talk about the risks of meat, we should also talk about the benefits. Red meat is one of the most nutrient-dense foods available. In terms of essential nutrients, red meat provides high-quality protein, vitamin B12, zinc, iron, and other essential nutrients that are hard to get from plant sources alone. Next is muscle maintenance and longevity. So sarcopenia, or age-related muscle loss, is a major issue as we get older. Protein from red meat, along with resistance training, helps prevent this. So after all that, what's the takeaway? First, processed meat is an entirely different story, and I would suggest you minimize it. Red meat alone, the data is weak at best. Really, you should focus on diet quality, the cooking methods, and lifestyle factors. So next time someone tells you red meat causes cancer, ask them, are we talking about red meat, or are we just lumping it in with processed food? I'm Dr. Carr. I hope you found this helpful. Go ahead and hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.